Everybody, this is Dream, and today we have a nice 8-game Major League Baseball slate. I really do like this slate quite a bit. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? My two core plays today are Cal Raleigh for Seattle and Tommy Edman for St. Louis. Let's go ahead and get into this slate here. Now, I'm going to point out for the San Diego game, it looks like Snell might pitch today, but there's also potential that there's somebody else. So we're going to have to wait and see on that game. But if Snell pitches, then he'll be in play as well. But I'm going to look at Luis Castillo today for Seattle. He's facing the White Sox, who've been kind of up and down recently, but they have had some good games. That said, he's in a good matchup. He's had some 25 fantasy point games over the last 10. He's also had a couple subpar games, but he has nice upside and good potential in this matchup. Then we'll look at Jordan Montgomery for Texas. Now, since joining the Rangers, he's had 2 games over 20 fantasy points out of 3. His K rate has also been really solid with the team so far, so I like his potential here. His ERA is pretty good as well, so he has nice upside on this one. And then we're going to look on some value options here. We're going to look at Paul Blackman for Oakland. He's one of the few pitchers on Oakland that actually has had a few good games recently. In 3 of the last 4, he's been over 20 fantasy points, and he's got good upside in a plus matchup here against Kansas City. And I didn't really find many Kansas City bats to be very interesting today. And then a very Hail Mary play is Drew Rom for St. Louis. Now, he came over in a trade, and he's been in AAA most of the season with a 5.34 ERA on the season. But the last couple games since he's joined St. Louis in the AAA, he's had 18 strikeouts in 2 games. He has 100 Ks on the season with 86 innings in AAA as well. So he does have some good upside for strikeout potential, and he's facing a weak Pittsburgh team, and that gives him some utility here, though he is a Hail Mary play, very extreme in that perspective. Maybe our catchers, we're going to start with Cal Raleigh for Seattle. He has some nice upside today. He does draw home run mechanics on this particular matchup. I think he's a great option on this slate, and I really think he's a home runner best type of play, though, because he hasn't hit the ball all that well recently, but he is a great option at his price. Sean Murphy for Atlanta is in play. He's been really good recently. He has nice potential here. I do like his potential for a home run today as well, as he's hit 3 in the last 10. He has hit the ball pretty well as well, and so he does draw good mechanics and potential here. The real risk here is this game under 10 fantasy points at his price, but he is capable of a big game here, and he's facing a good pitcher to have a big game against. And then Wilson Contreras for St. Louis. He's in a really good spot here. He's hit the ball very well recently. He's really hitting pretty well, though he hasn't been scoring a ton of fantasy points, which keeps his price low. But he does draw some home run mechanics today. That gives him some upside on this particular slate. Moving to first base, we're going to look at Alonso from the Mets. Now, he is playing against Atlanta today, and while Atlanta's pitching has been better the last week, this is a kind of a weak pitcher for Atlanta. Though he's had some good games, Alonso has some big-time potential for a home run. He has been very boom or bust, though, lately, so do keep that in mind, but he is a good option on the slate. Ohtani is Ohtani, and he can play outfield as well. He hasn't hit the ball quite as well recently, but he's still hitting some home runs. Still getting some stolen bases and getting hits in different ways, scoring fantasy points in different ways. Excuse me. So I do think he's a great option on the slate. Matt Olson also in play for Atlanta. He does draw some good mechanics for this game, or good metrics rather for this game. He's hit the ball very well recently. He has a lot of nice upside with the home runs, and he's a great option on the slate, though he is extremely expensive and does require a home run as well. Vogelbach for the Mets is dirt cheap. If he does draw the start, when did this go off? Why did that go off? Sorry about that, guys. Okay, so Vogelbach is in play today. Sorry if my sound is a little bit messed up because my thing died. I'm not sure why. Anyway, Vogelbach is in play today. He's hit 3 home runs over the last 10 games. He is kind of a boomer bust play, but he's nice and cheap and gives you a lot of potential to move other options around. And then Nathaniel Lowe for the Texas Rangers is in play. He has been somewhat inconsistent recently, but he does draw good metrics for this game, and I do like his upside. Maybe into second base, we'll look at Altuve for Houston. He's been pretty good throughout the season. He's hitting the ball extremely well. He's very close to a core play, but his price is just astronomical. I do think he's a good play on the slate, though, and has really nice upside. He's hitting just as bad as good as anybody else in baseball right now. Keto Marte has been inconsistent, but he does draw good metrics here. He is home runner bust, though, as he's only hitting 132 over the last 10 games. Marcus Semien is in play for Texas. He also has hit the ball pretty well throughout the season, though he has been a little bit of a slump as well, not quite as bad as Marte's, but he does draw home run potential in this particular game. And then Drury is a good value play for this position as he's hit the ball fairly solid throughout the season, and he does draw some good home run upside. He's not usually a he does tend to strike out some, but he does have some potential, and he's also had 2 straight games with really good fantasy point production. Maybe in third base, we'll look at Austin Riley for Atlanta. He has been hitting the ball very well. Atlanta's been on a tear for a while. He's hitting 300 over the last 10, has 3 home runs. He has good potential today, and I do like his upside. He even had a stolen base yesterday, though he does need to score over 14 fantasy points to pay off here. Rafael Devers looks like a really solid option today. He's been up and down throughout the season, but right now he's in a heating area, so he's heating up. While he's hitting the ball well, he's somebody that I really want to try to use as he has good home run potential when he's hitting the ball very well. He's had 3 straight 3-hit games. Just strike while the iron's hot. And then we'll look at Ryan Hayes for Pittsburgh, who's nice value play today at this position. He's hit the ball well. He does face a little bit of an interesting matchup here, but he does hit the ball well enough to pay off, and he's nice and cheap, so he doesn't have to do a ton to be a good bridge player. Alex Bregman is also in play at this position as a good play with home run potential, though he has been a little bit inconsistent recently as well. Maybe in shortstop, we'll look at Corey Seager for Texas. He does draw some high-end potential today with 5 home runs in the last 10. He has nice metrics for this game, and I like his upside. He does need to score a decent chunk of fantasy points to pay off. Then we'll look at Francisco Lindor for the Mets. He is also hitting the ball very well recently. Doesn't have as much home run upside as some of the other options, but he does draw good metrics and has hit the ball very well. I like his potential. Tommy Edman is a core play for me today, and he can play in the outfield as well. But he's hit the ball very well recently with 4 home runs over the last 10 games, and he's also getting some stolen bases, which definitely gives him some even more upside. J.P. Crawford, if he does play today, which I don't know for sure if he will, but if he does, he'll be somebody to consider today as he hit the ball very well before his injury, his concussion. So if he does come in and play today, then he's somebody that I'm going to be interested in due to his price being so cheap. And then if Vaughn Grisham draws a start today, then he'll be somebody that I would consider as an option. He hasn't played very much this season, but he does draw some potential. He does have some speed and stuff and has some home run upside, so I do think he's got some utility, though he hasn't really played very well so far this season. Maybe the outfielders, we're going to look at Acuna first for Atlanta. Obviously, he's Ronald Acuna, and he's just been as good as anybody throughout the season. I like his upside. He's in the running for the, for the MVP on his side of the league. So I do think he is a viable option here. Of course, his teammate is in the way. Ohtani is also in play at this position, who I already mentioned, as he has hit the ball very well throughout the season. Soto is interesting play today. He's been somewhat boom or bust recently, but he does draw home run metrics, and he's had a couple games with hits the last couple of games, so maybe he's getting going now. If he can get going and start hitting home runs again, he'll be somebody to be very good. Ruiz was somebody I really wanted to like today. He does draw some good stolen base potential, and that's why I like him. If he can get on base, he can get the steals and get you a good amount of fantasy points, and he's nice and cheap. Tommy Edman can also play here at the outfield. Brandon Nimmo also in play for the Mets. He is really hitting the ball well recently. He's had 3 home runs over the last 10 games as well. I think he's a great option on the slate, and he's very close to being a core play for me. Same goes for Tyler O'Neill, who I really do like a lot today. He hasn't been quite as consistent recently, but he's still hitting a couple home runs the last few games. Though he's not a huge home run threat usually, he does manage to have good hitting games and can score fantasy points in decent amounts. Alex Verdugo also in play for me for Boston. He does draw some good metrics. He's nice and cheap today. He's been a little bit boom or bust throughout the season, but he does draw. I don't know what's wrong with this. Sorry, my mic keeps cutting out. He does draw some interesting aspect today, and I do think he's a viable option. And then Ozuna for Atlanta, he's a kind of a sneaky play today as he's hit the ball very well recently. He tends to be very streaky, and while he's hitting the ball well, I'm going to make him an option because he does have that home run potential as well. And then last but not least, we're going to look at, oh, sorry, never mind. I don't know why I put a San Francisco player on here. So, yep, that's what I have today. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. Thank you guys for liking, commenting, subscribing, and have a nice day, guys.